Hi, my name is Tristan with Cardinal Tech Support, and I'm going to be showing you WinVRS and the basic setups for that today. First thing we'll do is go up here to File Configuration, and then we'll log in with our administrator password. If this is still standard WinVRS, you'll just use the number 4 for both operator and password. Once those are set, you can log in, and you should see this configuration menu page show up. Our first step in the configuration menu is going to be going to General Information. Double-clicking on that will bring you in here to input your registration information for WinVRS. This information should be provided by your dealer, and you'll just input this information as it was given to you. This is case sensitive, so it does need to match exactly as it was provided. Once you have all this information input, you'll go down here and click OK, and it'll bring you back to your configuration menu screen. Our next step is Scale Instrument Setup. Double click on this and it'll bring you to this page where you can see a grid that says Device ID and Workstation ID. And on the right side here, it will show you what the IDs are used in this grid. Below that is general weight settings. This information needs to be set up and to match exactly how your indicator is used. To make any changes on these, you just have to click in there and it will allow you to add or remove any items that you would need. For our units here, just select the drop down and select whatever item or unit you would like. Once this has all been set up, you can go over here to the LOC. Double click on that and it'll bring you to Update Device 1 Workstation 1. First we'll set up our profile. This is going to match the model of indicator and what style of indicator we're using. If this is not matching, click the 3 dots here, and as you can see in this list we have multiple different indicators. Click on whatever indicator you're going to be using and it'll highlight that blue, and it'll put that device profile name here in the top left. Once that has been set and matches the type of indicator you're using, just select Use and it'll input that here in your profile. Next is going to be our connection. I'm going to walk through both serial port and TCP/IP for connecting the scale to the computer. First is going to be serial port, and the first step in serial port is setting the port. This is not going to match the port that the indicator is using, but the port that the computer is using. To find that port, all you have to do is go down here to the search, click in Device Manager, and then there will be a ports section. Click on the arrow to drop down a section, and that port will tell you what COM is being used. Once you have that set, click the X to remove Device Manager and go in here and change your port to whatever COM you are using. Next, our baud rate. Same thing, this is going to match what the indicator is using. Just click in here and make the change as needed. For your parity, data bits and stop bits, you just have to click the arrow to make the drop down show up and then select whatever item your indicator is using. For our TCP/IP, all we have to do is input the IP address of the indicator and then generally use IP port 10,001, as this is the default standard that our indicators use. Once those have been set, you can then move on to capacity and divisions. The capacity and divisions will match what we had just input previously before going into this page. Next step is going to be setting our threshold. This is for setting up any prompting on an indicator, and this threshold is just being set to make sure that once that weight is exceeded, that the indicator will start prompting for the driver to input their information. Lastly, here we have our direction. We can set this to in, out, or any. This is generally used if we have 2 scales connected to WinVRS. We can set one as an in scale and the other as an out scale. Once we have these set, just click OK, and it'll make that change and bring us back here to Scale Instrument Setup. Next, I will show you how to add another scale to WinVRS. So in one of these blank boxes here, if we are just adding a second scale to this same workstation, just click on Device 2 Workstation 1. When we double click on that, it'll bring up this page, and here you'll input this information exactly as you'd set up previously on the last section. Once that's all been set up and matches how that scale is, you can then go down and click OK. If we do have a second scale set up and we eventually move away from that and go back to only one scale, You can select this and click delete, and from there it will remove that scale. You just have to click yes on this pop-up, and as you can see there, it is no longer showing up that scale connection. Once we are done with any changes that need to be made on scale instrument setup, you can click OK, and it'll bring us back here to our configuration menu. Next is hardware configuration. This is going to be connecting our printer to WinVRS. Here we can just double click on the printer and it'll bring up this page. Here we can enable any of these options that we would like, and if we would not like to use them, just make sure that it is not checkmarked so that it's disabled. To make any changes to the printers, select the three dots here, and it will show up the same printers that Windows is using, and from there you can select those. The default printer is going to use the same default that Windows is set to. Once you have a printer selected that you would like to use, just select use, and it will input that printer name here. If the printer is a text-only printer, make sure to have the text-only box checkmarked, and that way that will be enabled for that printer. Once you have everything set up as you would like for your printers, click OK, and that'll bring you back here to your configuration menu. Next, we'll go into our database tables. This is going to be setting up and modifying how WinVRS will be prompting and inputting data. First, we have our use column. For this, just make sure to checkmark any items that will be used. As you can see here, when you checkmark that, all the other checkmarks in any boxes will highlight so that we can now make further modifications. Next, we have our prompt. This is the name that this table is going to be under. You can double click in here and change that name to whatever item you would like. And once that change has been made, you can go down to the next items and make that change again. Once you have all your prompts set, you can go to required input. This is going to require that this information be input for a transaction to be completed. If a transaction does not need this to be completed, just make sure that it's uncheckmarked, as you can see here on the order table. Verify on file and recall on from vehicle and store to vehicle are all going to verify that the information that truck ID is using is going to be on the system and recalled or stored to this vehicle. If we do not need any of this, you can just uncheck mark any of those items, and from there it will not run through that process with them. Our tran prompt, remote prompt, and validate prompts will all deal with prompting. Tran prompt, make sure that the transaction will prompt whenever we are inputting that data. Remote prompt is prompting at the remote indicator that we have. And validate prompts is to validate whether the input information at the prompt is correct. So once a driver will input that information, it will prompt for them to confirm that. Remote list, it will show a list of the items that we have input for the driver to select from instead of actually typing that information in manually. Once this has all been set to as we need, you can come here to user tables, and user tables will be blank items that we can add to make customized to how you are needing. You will have 10 items, and same for these. You can select use and rename them as needed. If none of these are being needed to be used, just make sure that it's not checkmarked. Once you have everything checked as you would like, come down here and click OK, and it'll bring you back to your configuration menu. Next, I'll show you how to go and use WinVRS. So we'll come back to File, WinVRS, and this will bring up your home screen for WinVRS. Again, operator ID and password are both the number 4. Once we are logged in, first I'll show you how to input information with truck ID maintenance. You'll just double click into the truck ID maintenance here, and you'll see there's going to be 2 default items you have. If you would like to customize and add more trucks, you can click up here in the white box and type in whatever item or number you would like to have. Once that's been input, click add/update, and it will input this information into WinVRS and let you then modify as needed. You can input description, transaction type, charge by, tare weight, to pass or not, automatic pass, unattended tare weight issue, max gross, loaded weight, and it will also show all your loads, net weight, and units that have been used for this item. For any of this information, either click in the box and input into it, or click the drop down and select what you would like to use. For our tare weight, this can be manually input, or down here you can click read tare and it will read the tare weight off of the scale that is currently on. If you are using a 2-pass system, then you can just select 2-pass and the tare weight will no longer be used. For order ID, account, and material, as you can see here, this is whether or not the truck ID that you're using will automatically pull this information up when we are running a transaction. If you would like to add that information, you can come here and input that if you know what it's going to be, or you can select the 3 dots and select whatever item you would like it to be. So once you select that and it is highlighted, you can select use, and it'll bring you back here to your main screen for this ID, and as you can see, it has added that there for us. If we'd like to remove any of that information, all you have to do is click into that box and then just delete that information from there. It'll no longer be used in that prompting. Once you have everything set up for your truck ID that you're using, just click OK. And as you can see, it has added that there. If we would like to remove any IDs at any time, you can select that item, click add/update, and come back here and set it to inactive. This will make sure that the ID is not showing up any longer, but if we input its name again, it will allow us to come back through and make any changes. If we do not wish to have this ID any longer or show up at all again, we can click that, highlight it, and then click delete. It'll ask us if we are sure we want to delete that truck ID. Just select yes, and it will remove that permanently. And then if we try and input that information again, it will create a brand new blank section for us to restart and re-input that. Once we are done adding any truck IDs that we may need, we can go here and click close, and that will bring us back to our system menu screen. Next, we'll do material ID. In here, just double click on that, and it'll bring you to your material ID section. Same as truck ID, you can input any information that you would like and click add/update, and it will bring you to a page to fill in the information. Description and any of our charges can just be clicked on, and then you can just add that information as needed. For taxable and EPA tax, you can check mark those boxes and then fill in the information for that tax rate. For our loads, net weight units, both inbound and outbound, will all automatically be input by the transactions as they are being run. Once all this information has been set up, you can click OK, and it'll bring you back to your material screen. And from here, you can then add more or click close once you are done. For our order ID maintenance, it'll be the same thing as truck ID. You can input the name of the item that you would like, click add/update, and then from here, input the information that your ID is going to be using. Here we can see account ID is showing up. This will allow us to add an account that we'll be using for this order. Below we can see whether it's taxable, delivery charge, owner fee, print charges, open order, and inbound material. Allow any material and inactive. For any of these items, just check mark them as needed and input the information. Once this has all been set up, you can click OK, and it'll bring you back here to your order ID screen. If you'd like to remove an order, again, just select that where it is highlighted blue, click delete, and click yes, and I'll remove that order for us. Next, we'll click close, and it'll bring us back here to our system menu screen. Once we are ready, we can go into account ID maintenance, and in here we can set our accounts. Same thing, we can input the name of an account that we'd like, and as you can see here, we already had tests, so it automatically highlighted that for us. Once we are ready to modify that, click add/update, and then we can go in and update this transaction account. For the accounts, we do need to make sure that credit OK is checkmarked. If it is not checkmarked, as you can see here, when we click OK, it'll put a red X over this item, and it will not allow it to be used through a charged transaction. So we need to make sure that when setting up an account, we have this check mark so that it is usable. Once this is completed, we can click close, and it'll bring us back to our manual screen here. Next is going to be our summary reports. This is setting up reports for WinVRS. So if you'd like to run any reports, simply click in here, click on whatever report you would like to run, set the date range for that, and when you have that date range saved, you can preview or you can print the ticket. Previewing will just show you what the ticket will look like, and it will show that information in there for you. Once you're done with that, you can click close, and it will bring you back here to your main screen. And once you are done, you can come down here to menu, and it will bring you back to your home screen on WinVRS. If you would like to then process any transactions, down here at 5 for tram, you can click in here and input your information for your truck ID, and it will input that information automatically for you. Once we have weight on the scale and we are ready to weigh, we can press F6, or we can go down here and press 6 OK, and it will process that transaction. Once that has been processed, we can go back to menu here, and it'll bring us to our home screen. That is all for WinVRS and the basic setups of that. Thank you.